Hi, everybody. Welcome, welcome. Good to have you with us. We're just going to call our group. So let's see if anybody wants to get on. Okay, this is going to be a class about Sukkos. We're going to teach all about the Sukkah. If you don't know what a Sukkah is, go check that out. Get a picture of what a Sukkah is. That's really important. So Sukkot is a very special time. It is a time, it's the festival of joy. We've said this many times, but all the festivals really have within them a certain energy. Time is not a circle, it's a spiral, right? Spiraling. And so that's what time really is, because people experience time as a event, and it's kind of they experience it in a linear way. And then certain things happen along that linear way. Let's say you have a new year, you have maybe, if you're religious, Shabbos, and you have different things along that event. But that's not the correct way to see time. Time, in fact, welcome. Good to have you with us. Welcome, Sipa, welcome. You're always welcome to join in person as well at Ascent. So time is actually like a spiral. So what happens is that in the beginning of time, a certain energy was put into the world. And during specific times, there's a specific opportunity to tap into that energy. So I'll just give an example. Imagine you work for a company, and then, I don't know, every year on New Year's, they give a bonus. So if you want a bonus, you can't come in February. You have to come in January, whenever they're giving out that bonus. When they're giving out the bonus, you've got to show up. And the same thing is with time and events, particularly the spiritual time, which is the godly time, which is the holidays and the celebration. At those moments, God is bestowing, he's pouring down into this world specific energies. And these energies are opportunities. They're literally bonuses. You could live life, but in life, there are certain things that we need very much. Rosh Hashanah gives us our commitment to God. Yom Kippur gives us our oneness with God. And Sukkot gives us our joy of God. And I put this out on those of you, if you want, you can get connected to my WhatsApp group. But bottom line is, I put out that Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur are kind of like the marriage and, I don't know, the wedding day with Hashem. So you can almost call Yom Kippur like, you get engaged. Rosh Hashanah, like you got engaged and you actually have a feast, and you're getting married. And Yom Kippur is like the intimacy with God. It's just you and God yourself. That's why we divorce ourselves from the food and we wear white. So Yom Kippur is kind of this more intimate. It's like we got married. But the thing with marriage is that then you have Sheva Brachos. Then you have 7 days of celebration. So Sukkot is the celebrating of your relationship with God. And that's a very, 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 very important thing to do. Shalom Aleichem. Oh, what honored guests. Welcome. I didn't get an answer yet to your question, but somebody actually had a dog this. Oh, how are you, Yael? Welcome. You came to the class?
Who do I pay, by the way?
For what, for Ascent?
Yeah.
You'll have to pay by the front desk. Are you going?
Not yet.
Okay.
Just want to do that.
Yeah, good for you. Okay, you'll pay at the front desk, yeah. So, the story is that Rosh Hashanah was when Hashem, like we made a commitment to Hashem, and Yom Kippur is like the intimacy, right? So it's like you and Hashem. You don't have, you're wearing white. You're not connected so much to the physical. And Sukkot is a celebration, right? We're sitting, you guys can't see it, but I can see it. We're sitting in front of a couple that's getting married soon. So it's interesting because in marriage, there are basically 3 parts. There's the engagement part. And engagement is actually halachically very, very important. It's called erison. Today, we don't really celebrate it that much. We do both technicalities at the same time. But really what engagement is, it's kind of the separation. You're both separated. Kedusha, the word Kedusha means Kaddish, means holy. In other words, holy means you're sanctified, and there's something that you should always remember, you're sanctified for one another. It's a very special thing, right? That each person is obligated to the other person. They have no kind of claims on anyone else. So this creates something holy. That's the concept of sacred. Something that's sacred is something that's special. It has a unique relationship, as opposed to, many of our problems in this world is that nothing is sacred. So when nothing is sacred, boundaries, they don't create difficulties. They create something that's special, right? If a person, let's say, has a home, in the home you have a fence, it gives you the sense of privacy. It gives you the sense of that. So whereas the animal soul always wants more and never wants to be restricted, but a lack of restriction doesn't make you feel good. What it makes you do is feel dispersed. But the actual having that restriction and saying, no, this is the only person that I may have, intimate relations with, and this is and we have to love everybody, but this is the person I have to love most, or this person comes first. So what it does is it takes, like the Rabbi gives an example between the difference between the light bulb and the laser beam. The light bulb is amazing, but the laser beam creates miracles. Why? Because it's a focused light. It's the same thing as in life. The concept is, yeah, sure, you should love everyone, but when you have that focus, you actually are impacting on a very real way, and you're making that difference. A farmer might think about planting for the whole world, but each seed is what's actually going to create the produce. It's that specifics is getting down in life. We have both of these aspects. We have the koyach, the right brain, the potential, and then we have the poil, the actual. And actual is actually harder. Generally, male are the more the potential. So why males, like, think about most inventions, they come from males, and males have a better capacity, in a certain sense, even for joy, because you're living in the world of possibility, and it's a very beautiful world. But when you're living in the kind of more in the female brain, the Bina, you're living in the world of reality. And so therefore it's a more difficult world in a certain sense, because you're living in, this has to get done, that has to get done. That's why males and females, you have to appreciate that a woman is always kind of concerned about the details. Whereas a man actually is part of what he brings to the marriage is the big picture, right? Everybody wants to live within that high, that spiritual high. So hopefully the man does that in a holy way. You learn Chassidus and you daven, you're able to bring that to the table, because it takes a lot of mental energy to actually be focused. Like I remember my wife went once for 2 weeks out of town, and she had prepared food in the freezer for us. And additionally, I basically didn't use it. I took the kids out because there was like this great deal at a restaurant every night. 2 weeks later, like, I was ready to commit suicide. I couldn't handle it. And the reason is because it takes tremendous focus, mental focus, to look at all those details. Like, I don't think most men could do what women do, because our brains are much better at like thinking of a big picture. But the idea of actually accumulating all the details and being able to like say, okay, boom, 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 boom. So the way Hashem made a woman's brain, there's also white matter, more white matter. So what has to happen is not an option. It has to happen. So whereas the male brain can live even if the garbage isn't taken out, we'll be okay. We can get to it. But a female brain, if the garbage has to be taken, meaning if it's on the list to do, it has to get done. That's why it's very important to appreciate the differences as well as respect those differences, because what the male brings, the female can't bring, and he brings something that's very important, which is joy, hopefully spirituality. That's a very important component. And what the female brings, something in a way that the male can't bring. It's like it says, "Ein isha ela liyofi." A woman is for beauty. So what does that mean? My interpretation of that, it means a woman's able to make things beautiful, right? If you want to have a beautiful home, generally a woman would be a very good investment, because the woman has that capacity to look at the details and say, and women really tremendous capacity of looking at all those details and making everything so beautiful. So we complement each other, but we have to understand that each person literally is limited in their abilities. A man literally cannot focus on that many details, and literally the brain begins to explode after a certain amount. Whereas a woman, she in fact enjoys those details, but she needs a certain amount of joy in order to uplift her out of the difficulty of her position, in a certain sense, right? So that's the kind of thing that kind of veering off topic, but I guess it's special for you guys. So the point is that John Gray, when he came, did I ever tell you this? John Gray, when he came to South Africa, I saw this. John Gray wrote the famous book, Men Are From Mars, Women From Venus. So when John Gray came, he said, they interviewed him. They said, what do women want? Very interesting. So he said, women want for their husbands to make them happy. And they said, what do men want? Men want for their wives to be happy. So now I got a question. If men want for their wives to be happy and women want for their husbands to make them happy, so why is there so much unhappiness? What's the solution? That the man has to make his wife happy. So men would like their wife to be happy. But what they often don't realize is that they are that happiness. They are the key. Their ability to bring love and joy into the relationship, because the woman is more the receiver, so the moon receives from the sun. So when the man understands his capacity, men have unfortunately been very, very demasculated these days, so men don't appreciate fully what it is that they do, what it is that they bring to the table. It's very important for a man to actually understand what it is that they bring to the table, and that is that they bring, first of all, a sense of safety, which is very, very important, right? My line is, even a deadbeat dad is much better than no dad, because the fact is that what this person brings to the table is a sense of security. Even it's like an emotional security, just having a man around brings, and safety is very important for functionality, right? But ultimately, what is the in a healthier environment, what is the role? The role is actually to bring simcha, to bring joy. So in a way, the missing link and the key thing is that a man has to do a lot to make himself happy and to bring that happiness into the family, because a woman is receiving, it's like the sun and the moon. She is receiving from the energy of the man. So if the man comes to the table with joy, then she too will reflect that joy. And the same thing the Rabbi says about parents and children. I mean, I don't know how our parents were, but if your parents were happy, that would definitely make you happy. If your parents weren't happy, that wouldn't make you so happy. So in a similar kind of dynamic, it's very important for the man to realize my job, basically, and it's not a bad job, it's a pretty good job, is to be happy, or to try to make myself happy. And then I have the capacity to share that energy with my wife, who by nature is going to feel a little less happy than me, right? We have to expect women to be more stressed than men. And when we can understand that, it's that the nature of a woman is to be more stressed than a man. And studies show that women have double the rates of anxiety because their brains are more into all these details. So therefore, the man now has this mitzvah to say, oh, wow, there's a person that's more stressed than me. I'm going to bring them simcha. Okay, so that's little anyway. Next, so getting back to what we're doing is mamish the concept of relationship, because Hashem and us, we just got married, right? Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, and now what is going on is we are celebrating the marriage, and that's a very important thing, because in I have a friend, Yossi Ben Hashem, is a real genius. So he says, in the West we call lust love. Right, all the movies are about. There was just while we're on the topic, there was a young lady, very, very, very special woman. She made, I think, this thing in Boulder, Colorado called Eish Kodesh. But anyway, so when she went through Rabbi, she was like a special person. She had a lot of suitors. She had rejected everybody. So Rabbi said to her something interesting. He says, your problem is that you consider love what you read in romance novels. It's like this, wow, But really, love is the commitment that two people make for each other. And over time, as they are kind to each other, they cannot imagine life without the other. So actually, love is not magical. Love is practical. Love is much more commitment than it is experience. And that commitment creates touches of love. And those touches of love will then turn into, I can't even imagine life without you. And that's important to understand because so much of our expectations today about love is built on the movies and things like that. And so we think about love in terms of an experience. But love is not an experience. Love is a commitment. And from the commitment comes over time an increasing ability to feel trusting and safe and in fact loving. And one of the great gifts that God has given us is the gift of intimacy. And that too, these are all bonds, that ways that we touch each other. And so the more we're there, and it's also important to also have realistic expectations of one another. In other words, expectations have to be that we're going to fail. Nobody's able to show up all the time. If you show up 50% of the time, that's pretty good. So if you got 50% of your spouse's abilities, that's amazing. You won the lotto. You're doing great. And so once we understand that no, everybody's an individual and that you can't expect more than really 50% of that individual's best self, that's like a tremendous thing. Then you'll really realize that you are that it's increments. It's not, you know what I mean? Increments is a very important word, right? Because the emotions are all about the moment. It's like this powerful moment, right? But that's all it is. But life is about the incremental moments. It's not about the moment, right? So the wedding, so Rosh Hashanah is like this great wedding, and Yom Kippur is what I call it, the intimacy. But then actually comes the celebration of the marriage, right? And that's a very important thing because we have a certain, in a sense, it's a positive thing, but we have a certain kind of history, or almost a sense of if you want to call it culture around marriage, right? You get married and then you live together. But the thing is that, like the Rabbi says, a marriage has to be something dynamic. You have to actually, and all dynamic aspects, obviously, ironically, one of the important things of marriage is actually having time apart. It's very, very interesting. It's counterintuitive. But time apart is very, very important. In fact, Rabbi actually says that kind of after engagement, you should try to spend more time apart, because what you're doing is, it's like a rubber band. The more time you spend away, the stronger you connect. And so people often today are too much together. And so it weakens that coming back together. So it's quite important for couples to really, apart from the halachas, which are obvious, but even just time-wise is very important for, obviously not the first 7 days, but literally for a man to be out and come back to the house. It should be special. When the man shows up, it should be something like, oh, wow, that's great. I'm so happy to see my husband. You know what I mean? So this time away and time together are two parts of the same story, and it's very important to honor that dynamic. It's very important dynamic. Even some of the things that we do is, the week before, all these kind of things are actually very healthy dynamics, which create that when we're together, it should be more special. So we have to be able to really be strong on our commitment, because there'll be a natural tendency to always be together. You actually have to really be strong on the time away, because the time away is just as important as the time together. Okay. So, but the main thing that I wanted to bring out is this idea of celebrating. What are we doing? We're celebrating our relationship. And so celebration is a very important thing. King Solomon was obviously an expert on women. He had 1,000 wives, and he wrote the poem. And so, right? So he would actually make a feast. He couldn't be with all of them all the time, but he would make like a lavish, beautiful feast, like once a year, I think, for each one of his wives, right? In other words, there's the concept, and this is something also that's important in relationships. So I just spilling all the beans here, but a woman wants to be celebrated, right? Or she wants the marriage to be celebrated. This should be something that is, she wants her husband to be excited about this relationship, to that it should be something that he's like well, wow, I just won the lotto. I'm so lucky that I have you, you know, and that's why everything small is something big, right? Why is a rose so important? Because it's a celebration of this person. It's a celebration of the marriage. So small things are very big things, because what they really are is they are celebrating the relationship, right? So that's very, very important, certainly for women, to feel that, you know, their commitment, which is really a complete commitment, a soul commitment, is being honored and being celebrated, and therefore it doesn't take. I think a lot of men don't know this, particularly the times that we're in, and we're not educated in this way. It's very important to understand that these small gestures are big gestures, because what they really are is they're saying, I'm lucky to have you. I'm happy to have you. I'm happy to be in this relationship. I like this. And that makes the other person feel cherished, and it makes them feel good. And again, one of the good examples for this is, imagine your father did that to you. I know a family, one of the most healthiest families that I know, and they actually have 17 kids. And basically, and these kids, I can honestly say, I've never met more balanced, healthier children, people, amazing, one after another. And one of the customs that this family did, imagine what this would do to a child, is every Shabbos, like imagine 17 kids, the parents would give a gift to each one of those kids. Nothing major, but something small. Imagine all 17 are lined up, and the parents are giving each one a present, something, even if it's a notebook. But each child must have felt so loved. And now a child that has that kind of love, I heard this, that the Rizal said, I don't know if this is correct, but this is what I heard, that Rizal said, when a child, is a very important thing to know, from basically 0 to, I think it was something like 0, let me get it wrong. I think it was like something like 0 to 5. Basically, the child, or 6, the child needs the love of the mother. Then something from like 6 to like 12 or 13, the child needs the love of the father. And from like 13, I don't know, to whatever, it needs the love of friends. And if at any time there was a part of that puzzle that was missing, the only thing that can heal it is love. So a marriage is a very, very special thing, because in a marriage, you see, we were saying before, the marriage is kedushin. Kedushin means it's sacred, it's special. And you can only have a special bond if it's unique, if two people actually commit to one another. Because then, I mean, thank God, I like to say I'm an expert on marriage, because I've been married twice. And I can tell you there's nothing like the marriage bond. Nothing in the world. Why? Because the other person is your husband, is your spouse. There's nothing like that, because there's something sacred to it. There's something individualized to it. And so the type of bond that's created, you know, we live in a world where people are just casual, you know, but that's not making people happy. People are more suicidal, literally, than ever before. Why? And studies show that marriage makes people much happier. Why is that? Because something that isn't sacred isn't real. It's not going to last. And that's why the sacredness of this thing, the idea that we got under the chuppah, and we make a kedushin, and we sanctify ourselves to this other person. So it's actually, ironically, it's separating ourselves from everybody else that causes us to have the greatest love and joy possible. So it's the very separation. That's what it means to be a yid. To be a yid means that I'm separate. I'm not like a guy. I don't just walk around, eat what I want, and if I can have this relationship, I'll just do it. Or basically, even the worst case scenario, I'll take what I want. It doesn't matter. No, I'm a yid. God says, you are my chosen people. You are the models of behavior to the whole world. And whether we realize it or not, the Goyim know that. They look up to us and they expect us to be Jews. Goyim are not happy when we are not our best selves. When we are our best selves, the whole world will come right. Because they are looking up to us. They're being polite, hopefully. But they're saying, and even anti-Semitism to some extent, it's a cry, why aren't you educating us? Why aren't you telling us what our thing is? Because we have that source of love. Because Hashem, through the Rebbe, put it into us. So a person can't really feel love, which we all need and want, unless they've been loved. And so Hashem, particularly through the Rebbe of the generation, gives us that unconditional love. Like I mean, I'm a little older than you. I grew up with the Rebbe. Like you knew that the Rebbe would do anything for you. And when you have that kind of, and it's still like that today. People are getting answers from the Rebbe is giving his life for us. So when we know that we are so loved, that gives us a certain confidence and a certain ability to beat the Yetzer Hara, to do what's right. And so therefore we have this tremendous duty in our lives to actually share the message with a Jew that doesn't know about Yiddishkeit, with a non-Jew that doesn't know about Hashem. We are the ones that are responsible for the world. The Baal Shem Tov says a Jew is responsible to teach the Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach to the world. We are responsible for the world. And that's really what the Rebbe taught us, is that it is our responsibility. Life is not an opportunity, it's an obligation. But the more we obligate ourselves, again, that's the difference between the Yetzer Hara and the Yetzer Tov. The Yetzer Hara is saying, don't tell me what to do. But meanwhile, you don't feel like you did anything. It's true. You're a free person. But did you accomplish anything? But on the other hand, if you subjugate yourself to the Rebbe, to Hashem, to the mitzvahs, even to whatever you think you should be doing, and you do it, you're going to walk away every day and say, wow, I did that. You're going to walk away with pride. Because ultimately, the animal soul is about pain and pleasure, and the godly soul is about pride and shame. So what would you prefer? A life which was difficult, but you could look back and say, wow, I'm proud of myself? Or a life that was easy, and you look back and you say, I'm ashamed of myself? It's not even a question. Everybody would choose the pride. But we have to, okay, so that's the Vard there. So getting back to Sukkot, Sukkot is a time where we are celebrating the relationship with God, because God is very kind. God is like the ultimate husband. He's like, I'm here for you. I love you. I'm going to give to you unconditionally. No matter what you do, you can never screw up this relationship. I am yours. I'm your husband forever. It's a beautiful thing. But are you celebrating the relationship? Are you feeling honored? Are you feeling grateful that Hashem in his infinite, he's infinite. He doesn't need any of us. He's infinitely beyond all of us. And he has the love and the compassion to come down to me and to help me. So I could take it in an egotistical way. Oh, wow, God is talking to me. I'm so lucky. Or I could take it the way I should take it. Like, wow, I'm so more unworthy that such a great God should choose me, right? That's what it says in Hasidus. It says that if a person is, God forbid, arrogant, then what happens is everything you give them makes them more arrogant. You know, I say, if you give a dog a bone, he thinks he's the king, right? But, you know, you actually see, it's very interesting, a dog that's well taken care of, so that, like, it has a certain pride and it barks at everybody, right? But what happens if you ever see, like in Crown Heights, unfortunately, there are these dogs that are kind of, I don't know, at least when I was there a while ago, the neighborhood wasn't so great. And sometimes there would be like these stray dogs and they'd have to eat out of the garbage cans. You could literally see they felt shame, you know, they're like, they had a sense of shame on their face. And so the point is that the same thing is with the human being. If the human being gets something, here's a simple example. If I just gave you, I don't know, $1 million. So if you're a very refined, sensitive person, you would like be kind of in a way ashamed that somebody gave it to you. And if you had the money, you'd feel like, wow, I didn't deserve that money, and you'd be very careful with the money. But if we're more like the Yetzer Hara is in charge of us, then you got $1 million, like, yippee, let's go spend it, you know? So the point is, this concept of having the humility to understand that Hashem doesn't owe us anything. And he's given us, you know, he's given us himself. He gave us, you know, Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, and here we have Hashem. So we have to appreciate that. And in fact, Alter Rebbe goes further. The Alter Rebbe says that the neshama is made up of Yud K Vav K, right? Each and every one of us. You ever saw the Matrix? Mm-hmm. Right? The Matrix is like you're connected to the source. We're all connected to the source, especially a Yid. So wherever I go, I remember there was a mashpia who said, he says, if you are a chassid and you're going to the movie theaters, make sure you buy 2 tickets, because one of them is for God. Because wherever you go, you are taking Hashem with you. And so it's very important to understand that, if I, God forbid, sin, it's not only me sinning, it's Hashem is sinning because Hashem has taken me. It's just like a relationship. If you have a relationship, then what happens in a relationship is that your spouse's name is connected to you, right? So they say the wife of a Talmud Chacham is a Talmud Chacham. The wife of a thief is a thief, because your goodness is connected to them. We have Hashem's name, whether we realize it or not. We don't appreciate who we are. The Goyim actually do appreciate it. I don't know if you know this, it's amazing. How many people do you think percentage of people that respect Jews in America? What do you say the percentage? 70%. 70% support for Jews in America. Now, this is very interesting. Which religion is most respected in America? You would imagine Christianity, yeah? But actually, Judaism. Judaism has a 70% respect in America, and Israel has a 70% respect. We're talking about hundreds of millions, and that's just America. China, the only culture they respect besides their own is the Jewish people, because we're an ancient culture. India has like 1.4 billion people. They have a 70% support for Israel and India. You know what 70% is? That's a billion people. That's more than a tenth of the planet just in one country. Around the world, there are hundreds of millions.
Where are the statistics from?
The first statistic was from Pew polls. The India one, I don't remember where it's from. Yeah, but I'm not just making it up. It's like, last couple of years I saw it. Yeah. So the world looks at you with the greatest. There's no person in the world that is more respected than you. We may not realize it, but if you are a Jew, no matter how much you do or don't practice, there's no one in this planet that is more respected than you. And so when we understand that, we realize that, first of all, it's deserved, because whether a Jew doesn't even realize, a Jew thinks, I'm not so good. If you ever meet a secular Jew, they're like, yeah, I don't keep kosher. But you're doing so many mitzvahs. You're an honest person. You're a good person. You're such a good, in the world, you stand out as a great light, and the world is looking for role models. They're looking for you. And so that's why the world is so much in a state of an appreciation for Jewish people. And in fact, we really have to understand how valuable we are to the world, right? I don't need to do that much, but even this little bit is important, and people, comment and they like it. Why? Because they're looking up to the Torah, and they want us to share. Other rabbis have hundreds of thousands of views and things like that. So the point is, these are coming from Gentiles, right? They want to hear us. We're in a time where people are respecting us, and we have to respect ourselves. We have to share the Torah and the mitzvahs. So this is the story in terms of Sukkot. Sukkot is a time of celebration, and we got to get ready, of course. Do you need any help, by the way, with the Sukkah? I can refer you to Rabbi Marzel. He has Sukkot and schach and anything you need. So we should get you guys that. So Sukkot is all that, and maybe sign up with Ascent in terms of meals and all the good stuff, okay? But so that's that. Okay. That's number one. Number two, in terms of Sukkot, is we take the lulav and esrog, and the meditation of that is we're taking godliness and we're bringing it into our heart, right? So in other words, once again, it's the same concept. It's that Hashem has given us his heart, but we are bringing Hashem's heart into our heart, right? But you have to manifest Hashem with all your heart. It's not enough that God gives you his heart. You have to basically let his heart come into your heart. The two hearts have to become one heart. And that's really what Sukkot is all about. It's all about this special bonding with Hashem. And once you have that bonding, the Rebbe also says a sukkah is like basic training. You're like in the trenches. You're a soldier, so you know about that. How long basic training did you do?
Basic training 4 months, advanced training another 4 months.
Okay, so you
Full
did
training is like
8 months. Okay, cool, nice. What did you do advanced training in?
It's like urban warfare.
Oh yeah. Oh wow. Okay. So
Ancient buildings.
yeah, right. The modern,
companies.
right? Yeah. Yeah. In any event, so basic training is like, so you're getting ready to go to war. So everything Hashem gives us in Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and Sukkot, this is to get ready to practice in the rest of the year. You understand? So this is what we're doing. Okay. So now we're going to go on to the next subject, which is a very, very, very beautiful subject. There's a collection of the teachings of the Rebbe. It's called I Chassid, and it's everything that the Rebbe told us to do in preparation for the Yom Tov. Well, gives us advanced information. And so I'm going to read this to you. It's available on a website called ichassid.com. And everybody should check it out. You know, listening to the Rebbe is not, some people make this mistake, myself included, is we think that listening to the Rebbe is like an extra thing, or we think about Chassidus, like Chassidus is like, it's this extra thing. Chassidus is not extra. Chassidus is actually the Torah of Mashiach. Baal Shem Tov came to the world to reveal basically the Torah of Mashiach, to begin the revelation process. And the Torah of Mashiach is not another Torah. It is the essence of the whole Torah. So, for example, it's like you might say, oh, I was in basic training, and now why should I have to go to war? I study the whole thing. Yeah, the whole reason you study this is to be able to accomplish the mission. The whole reason we had the Torah was in order to have Chassidus, in order to live a higher consciousness and a deeper lifestyle. This was the whole purpose. So when you have the Rebbe coming and he learns all of Torah and all of Chassidus and he's telling you what to do, it's not like in addition to the halacha. Oh no. Number one, this is the whole purpose of Sukkot. The whole goal of God when he gave us Sukkot was to teach you this aspect that the Rebbe is telling you to do. This is the goal. And so being a chassid is not something outside, God forbid, of Judaism. It is the essence of Judaism. It's exactly what God's original intention was. This is what he really wants. To do it in the best way possible. Like it says, when Mashiach comes, we're going to do mitzvahs v'seinecha, the mitzvahs according to his will. Okay, so let's begin. The very first thing of Sukkot preparations is each one of us should take personal responsibility in the campaign to provide all Sukkot requirements to those who cannot afford them. This could be quite easily accomplished by donating money to institutions that assist the needy. Those that would like to donate to me, thank God I help quite a few people here in Tzfat. So it's very, 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 very important to donate. Particularly the other institutions that you can donate to, such as Kol Chabad, they give out a lot of money. So that's very important that we do that. Okay. The next thing, there's actually a couple things about helping the needy, and the Rebbe says some very important things. We should inform the recipients well before Sukkot that they can expect to receive everything they need for Yom Tov. In other words, a person that doesn't have what they need is going to be stressed. The advisory itself brings them both spiritual and physical comfort, right? So there's somebody that actually kind of support a little bit. So, and they reached out. So I said, oh, I'm not giving them the money maybe this minute or maybe today, but I said, by the way, we have this amount of money for you. Why? Because I want the person to know that, we've got this money. At least they can feel a little bit safer, more secure. Speedy delivery. We should attempt to deliver the holiday supplies at the very earliest occasion, bringing peace of mind and joy to the recipients in the preparatory days leading up to Sukkot. And it's very important that we understand that when we give to those that need, we're not kind of doing them a favor. If anyone needs to put the phone on mute, feel free. We're actually doing what our obligation is, because Hashem, that's why the word for tzedakah comes from the word tzedek. Tzedek means justice. Why is it just? Because Hashem created a world in which there are those that have and don't have, but nobody is more. This is the problem in the Western mentality. It's a very big problem. There's this concept of hierarchy. You have more money, you're richer, you have a plane, you're somehow better. You're not better. You have more responsibility to give more tzedakah. That's what you have. And it's very funny because we in the West, thank God, in America, it's a lot less hierarchy than other places. But in other places like India, the caste system is like part of this culture. In other places, I don't want to mention names because I don't want to make anyone upset, but certainly my brother-in-law, he lived in a certain, whatever. He lived in Ukraine. So, but there the culture is literally if a person has money, like they let him to the front of the line, you're dressed in a nice suit, because it's literally like a king serf mentality, which was how the world functioned for many, many years. And many countries still have that mentality. But the Jewish people, we are not like that, because every single Jew is equally as valuable as the other Jew. And if somebody doesn't have, it's because Hashem wants me to have a friendship with that person. And the way I have a friendship is because they have a need. It's very important in relationships as well to look at the relationships this way. The whole world was created for love. And again, love is best expressed in marriage. But there has to be a giver and receiver. And we have to realize that Hashem didn't need to make us in a way that we need things from each other. He could have made it that we don't need anything from each other. But Hashem made it that we do need things from each other. And so why did he make it that way? Because he wants there to be relationships in this world. And this Western mentality has created, I remember when I went to, I started off, I went to school, then I went to yeshiva, then I went to teach in like a university. And so, I was kind of like about the student's age anyway, so it was like friendly with them. Then I went into the real world, if you want to call it. And in the real world, I realized the Western society is the loneliest society ever created by man. We're lonely. There's a minister of loneliness in England. And loneliness is a worse indicator of disease than any other symptom. It's an amazing thing. A person can have high blood pressure, blah, 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 blah. Loneliness is a bigger symptom than anything else. So why did Western society create it? So to some extent, it's a byproduct of prosperity. When people are prosperous, so what do? They buy a fancier house. So they buy themselves their own prison. But Yiddishkeit is the only antidote to that, because Yiddishkeit says, no, you got to go to minyan, and hopefully the women are together, and let's say different women events. Yiddishkeit brings us together. Like you go to 7-7, you go even any shul, like even the shul that I was just at, Yom Kippur. Sitting in front of me is a multimillionaire, right? You have this kind of connection because he has to daven to Hashem just like I have to daven to Hashem. His responsibilities as a Jew is no different than my responsibilities as a Jew, right? So therefore, it is this great ability. I'll just tell you something very, very interesting. Ever heard of Paul Johnson? Paul Johnson is a very famous historian. He recently passed away. He wrote over 80 history books, and he probably was the greatest historian of our times. He wrote a history book on history of the Jews. And so Paul Johnson was asked by the chief rabbi of England, Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sacks, to be a lord as well. It's not a bad position as a rabbi. So he was asked, so he said, you did a history of the Jews. For example, we have concepts such as, human rights and, women, marriage and all these kind of things. It's really all from the Jewish people. He says, could be society would come up with these ideas on their own, but could be they wouldn't. And so the story, and of course, it's not us, it's Hashem. Hashem told it to us. So Paul Johnson said something very interesting. So the rabbi, the chief rabbi of England, said to him, what was the deepest thing you learned from your history of the Jewish people? So he said like this, the Jewish people, more than any other culture, remember he wrote 80 history books, was able to merge the divergent goals of individuality and community. Because you understand what I'm saying? Because really, most cultures will mess it up, right? You have an American culture, which at least it used to be more on the conservative side, the idea of freedom. And that unfortunately creates somewhat of anarchy. And then you have another culture, which is most cultures, where it's about the culture itself, Japanese being one of the greatest examples. It's all about the culture. They don't care about your freedom. You have to obey the culture. And so now you don't have the individual anymore, right? They say the Japanese are not born, they're created. And so the ability to give ourselves both of these things, individuality as well as community. See what Hashem did? And this is what Hashem is doing for us today, because what we don't realize is that Hashem, it says in the times of Mashiach, Atem to look to echad echad. I'm sure each one of us sitting around this table is part of the same experience. I've said this before, 62% of the world is based on Gallup polls. 62% of the world believe they have a personal relationship with God. So the story is that Hashem is doing that on a personal level, person to person. So now each person has their special relationship to God. So now collectively, we have something in common. So individually, we have something special, and collectively, we have something special. So it's very, very special what's going on in the world today, that Hashem is on one hand taking away the superstructure, but he's allowing the internal structure actually to come from him, and therefore creating a new superstructure, which is like more people are leaving organized religion, but more people are becoming spiritual. So there's this new reality going on of the individual connection to Hashem, which is really a very special thing, because that's, once again, the essence of Mashiach, the essence of Hashem, the essence of the Torah. The essence was to reach this point in which we have this personal connection and relationship with God. Okay, so let's continue with some of the things for Sukkot. We should attempt to deliver the holiday supplies at the very earliest occasion, bring peace of mind and joy to the recipients of the preparatory days leading up to Sukkot. So again, I distribute money. Whoever would like to give me, or I'll send a link. I have a link where you can do that. Please do so. And there are other organizations that do that as well. It's very, very important. Any way that we could help people, we have to do that as soon as possible. They shouldn't be worried. I'll tell you an interesting story, very interesting story. This guy, fascinating story. He had a very difficult life. I mentioned him the other day. His mother was murdered in the Holocaust. He was brought up by Christians, and his father then took him, and he basically was kind of abandoned in a yeshiva. And I mean, thank God he became a great rabbi, but emotionally, I think he never had the confidence to really self-develop properly. In any event, one year, I said to him almost randomly, if anybody's phone isn't on mute, please put it on mute. That way we're not going to get background noise. So I said to him, I don't remember exactly what it was, but I was like, I gave him like money for a sukkah. I was like, do you need money for a sukkah? I don't know, whatever. It was like, it wasn't that much money. It was like $500 or something. So he was like, yes. And he took the money, and he told me he didn't have money for a sukkah. And he had said to Hashem, it's up to you. If you give me the sukkah, I'll have the sukkah. So this guy literally, so when you give somebody something, you should always remember that you were Hashem's shliach to do that. Very famous story with Baal Shem Tov. Somebody wanted to see Eliyahu Navi, and he told them to take all this provisions for Pesach, and the children thought that he was Eliyahu Navi. Because when you are helping someone, I met this guy, very brilliant guy. He was over 90 years old, and he hadn't put on tefillin for 70 years. My mother, big tzaddik, because she had me meet this guy. He put on tefillin. He said, wow, I feel reborn, this and that. And listen to this. He said he was in Kansas City for 50 years. He said, where were you till now? Interesting. The Jew that you're going to put on tefillin with, that you're going to give Shabbos candles to, that you're going to tell them about mitzvahs. You know what they're going to say? Where were you till now? You know, everybody that becomes religious, they're like, I wish I did this earlier, right? So we don't realize that we've been, particularly if we're Chabad, we've been given, we are the if you want to call it, the missionaries of the Jewish people. We're here to light up other people's neshamas. And if we slack, they lack, you know, and that's an important line. If we slack, they lack. So understanding that person, the earlier Hasidim, they would have a line when they would give, in those days, often they would literally give bread to each other. People ate bread. And so they would have a line which was, this piece of bread that I'm giving to you is more yours than mine. In other words, they had this understanding that the world is not, because the Western world sees money as my money. But your money is not your money. Your money is God's money. He gave it to you, so you should use it in good health for good things. And part of it is the person you're giving the money to, that is actually their money. Because Hashem is just using you as the mechanism to help them. And so therefore, it's a story with a Rebbe. There's a very good book. It's called Not Just Stories. It's in the back here by Rabbi Twersky. You should really read the book. And he takes out stories and he takes out lessons. So there's a story with a guy who was wealthy, he was losing some money. So he goes to his Rebbe, and his Rebbe says, crystal glasses. So what was the problem? The problem was that he had these beautiful crystal glasses, but he would be very upset when somebody would ship it, So he put the crystal glasses in the cupboard. And the Rebbe was like, these crystal glasses were meant for your guests to enjoy the Shabbos table, and you took it away from them. In other words, our job is literally to understand that person that you see, who do I have to help? So I have a booklet in the back. It's the appendix of my book, Kabbalah Love, and the booklet is Discover the Meaning of Your Life. And I say, you know what? The meaning of your life is right in front of you. It's the people in front of you. But often we're so busy looking at the global picture that we forget, actually, my wife's needs are my first, or my husband's needs. Yes, men have rights too. My husband's needs are the first primary obligation that I have. My children's needs, my family, my community, these are the first mitzvahs. These are my mitzvahs. It doesn't look so hot. It doesn't look so, nobody's going to give me honor for this. But this is really the way it is. And I like to say that the way Hashem works, I call it the circle of love, or circles of love. Because again, sometimes we think big. Oh, wow, the whole world has to have, maybe you're right. But actually, there's a circle. The first circle is actually yourself. You have to take care of yourself. And the next circle is, let's say, your spouse. The next circle is your children. The next circle is, let's say, your parents and your brothers and sisters. The next circle is your community, right? And then we have different structures. But the point is that there's a circle. And you have to understand that the priority in your life are these circles. And if you understand that, then you're a healthy and a balanced person. And you have a question?
Okay.
Yeah.
When one has children,
yeah,
would you put your wife or your children first?
Yeah, that's a good question. But usually putting the wife first is the way to put the children first, because what the children certainly need in the earlier stages is the mother. That's certainly probably up to the age of, certainly without a question, up to the age of 2, the primary connection of a child is the mother. I mean, even physically they're being fed. And then perhaps a little older, maybe when they're getting to like 6, which is the age of education. And particularly boys will need the father more, particularly at the age of 5 and 6. The father is more, in a way, more important. I don't know if you can say that. But, the modelship of the father is very, 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 very critical for the boy to have that. And in fact, for the girls too. Girls need a father. The father makes a girl feel like a girl, makes the girls feel pretty, and makes them feel, hopefully, that they'll desire a relationship in the future with a man. So men have been really destroyed very badly by I'm not saying that all of the feminists, there was some good that came out of it. There certainly women shouldn't be oppressed in any way. But the woman who made the feminist movement, she said, a woman needs a man like a fish needs a bike. So that is a very sad concept, because it penetrated a lot of the psychology of men, and then therefore the men don't appreciate the value that they bring to the relationship. And if they don't appreciate what they're doing in the relationship, that's why it's actually very important for women to express appreciation to men today, because often they need to know that what they're doing is serving a purpose, right? Anybody would do anything if they know that what they're doing is valuable. But if they don't know that what they're doing is valuable, like, you're a soldier, you went to war because it's important, right? So the more a person understands that what they're doing actually makes a difference, the more readily they will want to do that, and they'll actually be happy to do that. So that's a very, very important concept. The supply should include holiday meals and a lulav and an esrog set, as well as access to a sukkah. Ideally, we should provide the needy with their own sukkah. Through this degree of generosity, not only does the recipient stand to gain, but in addition, the beneficiary's joy of the holiday reaches ever greater fullness. So that's very interesting what the Rabbi is saying. The Rabbi is saying that the more you're going to give, the more you're going to feel good about your gift, right? So giving, there was a man, he wasn't religious, but he was a very, very, very kind, generous person. He would always say, I'm a selfish person. I love giving. So he never saw himself as like a philanthropist or a giver. He's like, I love to give. It makes me happy. So that's a great thing. Then the Rebbe says something very important. We should be vigilant in determining whether a neighbor or of ours may lack something for the Yom Tovim, but due to his fallen spirits, he lacks the courage to speak out. Right? Often people have need. In fact, the Alter Rebbe says a Jew dies of embarrassment, literally, because he may be embarrassed to ask the other person, and therefore he may completely, unfortunately, lack what it is that he needs. So a person has to now. There was a guy who was a Holocaust survivor. He used to hang out in Kikar Maginim. Kikar Maginim, the little Kikar. So it's kind of by the Tzemach Tzedek Shul. And he told me he was such a special Yid. Shane, this poor guy, after he kind of escaped, he was working for the Hungarian Nazis, and then he escaped to the Russian side, and they put him in a prison labor camp with Nazis for like 3 years. I think he wrote a letter to Stalin who he got out or something. But then he came to Israel. He was like a broken man, 1940. Kikar Maginim is called Kikar Maginim because that's where the Haganah had said he married the secretary of the Haganah. Long story short, he was like the classic, if you want to call it, you come from Australia, the older generation of Yidden, simple, hardworking, straightforward, no airs about it, sees every Jew as a brother and sister. And he said, today, everybody's into money, right? So people are getting distracted. I put it out, I don't know if you're on my brain chat, but somebody put out, they asked ChatGPT, if I were the Satan, what would I do? How would I fulfill my role? And one of the things that was create, apart from distractions, create addictions. And so people, and in fact, what's interesting about the money addiction, and again, money is a good thing. Everybody should be wealthy in healthy ways, but it's part of a bigger picture. It's part of the picture of life and Hashem. But part of the addiction, the real reason people are seeking money, the Baal Shem Tov says people want money so other people should know they have money. Like if you were alone on an island, would you need money? No, you would need your needs met, right? How much money is in the bank account makes no difference. So the point is that really we just have needs to be met. Now, obviously, if you have more money, you can give more tzedakah and you maybe do more mitzvahs and meet your needs in an easier way. But that's the value of money. Money doesn't have an intrinsic value, right? So the point is that I think a lot of what's gone on in the world, what I see is that, not to mention names, but since Obama, which came with a complete what we call chitzonius, in English it's called BS, which is this complete false persona, right? That's the ultimate of narcissism, that you don't feel good in yourself and you don't feel safe. And so what you do is you create, and it's subconscious, you can't even blame someone, you create a false aura of grandeur. And meanwhile, you have these entire societies. I lived in one in South Africa, and they're all faking for each other. It's just this massive fakeroo. Each person's faking for the other person. So when you don't have that, people are much more genuine, and then money is more a tool. But when you have a society in which everybody feels, wow, that guy looks so impressive with his fancy car, I don't look so impressive. So then money becomes almost this craving, because it's not so much about the money, it's much more about the esteem and the lack of shame that the money is providing. That's why certain societies have bling, because they're unfortunately they don't have good self-esteem. And without self-esteem, you have to make yourself look better, and you look better by wearing all that gold and showing how much your cool car and things like that. So anyway, I'm not sure how we got into it, but I'm sure it's relevant. So the Rabbi says we should be vigilant in determining whether a neighbor of ours may lack something for the Yom Tovim, but due to his fallen spirits, he lacks the courage to speak out, right? So people often in life, my father said this once, he's a very great rabbi, he said this in a speech, he says, imagine somebody's wobbling, right? And you need to pick them, get them up. So one person can come and stand them up. Imagine someone's on the floor. How many people will it take to pick that person up? So I was saying, try to be clever. See the person who's lacking the spirit. Maybe they're fallen. They can't even ask. They're embarrassed. It's like, if I may quote myself, the real people that need charity are not usually the people that ask for it, meaning the people that ask for it need help. But like the people on the street that are asking, they're not the ones that need it most. It's the people that are not asking that they're the ones that actually need it most. So ideally, we should be seeking out who might need and give. And that's why giving to stuck organizations is a very good thing, because they know those people and they are much more in the capacity. The Rebbe once said that the Rebbe said that if all Jews gave 10% of Meiser to tzedakah, there wouldn't be a single Jewish organization in need of money. There are billions, there's so much money in the Jewish world, it's unbelievable. But actually giving it to the right organizations, a place like Kol Chabad, that really, really are there. But even Kol Chabad, I'm a little bit involved in this world. It's basics, right? A Jew should have everything they need in abundance. There should be $1 trillion funds being given out. I don't know if anybody ever is going to see this and can help, but like certainly the Christians want Jews to live in Israel. Well, if there was a fund, we say, come to Israel, learn Torah, we'll support you in a nice way. You could have another 1 million Jews here tomorrow. What are you going to do here? So it's important that we do this. Even if you already donated towards this cause, you should nevertheless consider whether additional efforts are required in order to further the campaign of providing holiday needs. Bring Jew to every joy. The mitzvah of providing for those who are in need assumes ever greater significance during the festival of Sukkot, which is clearly and prominently designated as Zaman Simchasenu, our time of rejoicing. Sukkot is a time to really exert ourselves in ensuring that every Jew is joyful. So the Rebbe wants us to make it not only that the guy has roof over his head, but they have joy. They have everything they need in a beautiful way. And then we should give extra tzedakah on Erev Sukkot. Okay. Any questions?
Extra question.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're mentioning about marriage and about how it's the husband's job to make the woman happy. But doesn't she also? I think I've asked this question before, but doesn't she also have an obligation to?
An obligation to make her husband happy? Yeah. What you're saying is true. There's a very important letter from the Rebbe on marriage, which is on my website under the marriage tab. And basically, the Rebbe says a marriage is based on give and take, 50-50. And certainly our Chachamim put obligations. It's interesting. From the Torah, the obligations are on the man, the pure Torah. There's Sheiruk Sosei Nasa, as well as V'simach Sishtei, the first year to kind of be dedicated to making your wife happy. But the sages did put obligations on the woman, because any relationship which is on balance is not going to work that well. A woman, everybody needs to understand that for a relationship to work, they have to be putting something into the relationship. So from our rabbis teach that a woman should make the home, which is usually what the women do, and so that kind of makes the relationship more fair. And then additionally, the Rambam speaks about that a wife should cherish, look up to her husband like a king, respect his words. He should treat her like a queen. So there has to be a tremendous amount of respect. And to a certain extent, it's the Ezo Ishuk Shera Ha'isa Ritzayin Baila, who is a righteous woman who does the will of her husband. So a righteous woman should try to please her husband, obviously, within the context of Judaism, as well as if the husband can grow a little bit, to try to encourage that growth. So there's definitely, yeah. But again, it's an interesting thing because it's not that well known, but based on the dynamic of a relationship, anytime you have a dynamic, I'll give you an example. Who's meant to make who happy, a teacher or a student? So actually it's the teacher that has to make the student happy, because based on the dynamic of the relationship, or if you ask another question, who's meant to make who happy, a child or a parent? A parent. Why? Because the dynamic of the relationship creates a certain fear. The receiver always has a certain fear of lack. And so therefore the giver doesn't really have that fear. So it's actually up to the giver to to understand that there's a certain, if you want to call it, humility in the receiver, and the receiver is waiting in a way for the giver to give. So it's very important to understand this, because Rashi explains that a novin, there's a chacham and a novin. Chacham is somebody that knows information. A novin is somebody that understands that other people are not going to approach you for the help that they need. You need to approach them. Somebody once asked the Rebbe, what's the difference between a rabbi and a Rebbe? So the Rebbe said, a rabbi waits for you to come to him, a Rebbe goes to you. So we're going to conclude soon. But the idea is that having that understanding that most people are going to kind of be shy. And so I have to really look out for what is their need and try to fulfill it is a very, very important skill set, and very, very critical and important skill set. I do feel that, it definitely needs to be educated. Men, unfortunately, I don't know, maybe all people, but we're not really educated that much on what to do in marriage, so it makes it a little complicated. But if we have this understanding that, you have to be like kind of sensitive and understand that there are going to be needs, and try to be able to almost discern what are those needs and what can I do to help, then I think we'd be in a much stronger position. And the same things with children, right? Children, I saw this thing from a psychologist, like if only we listened to when our children spoke to us, right? Because if a child's actually talking to you, it means that people don't want to ask for help. So if they're asking for help, they actually really, really need that help. It's really, really important to them. But they're going to ask it in a way that they're not going to feel that the relationship is going to get destroyed. So you're trying to maintain the relationship while asking. So you're going to ask in such a way like, oh, do you think you might be able to do this? So you don't realize the person is like really, really needs that. And so they're just asking in a nice way. So to be very sensitive to the fact that the questions that are coming to you are very valuable, and very important to the person that's asking that question. In general, we should be that way in life, because usually, you have some people that have lost all sense of shame, so they're just happy to ask everyone for everything. But a normal person that has a sense of shame, if they're actually asking you for something, they really need that thing. And so a person has to, you don't always have to say yes, but a person has to be very, at least sensitive to the idea that that person is in a state of need. And then that changes the equation. It's not only like, how does this relate to me? It actually, how does it relate to them? Does that answer your question?
A little bit. I just get more into detail before about like man being giver and like his obligation to make the woman happy. But I'm just thinking, we say also that, it seems like very one-sided that the male gives to the female, but I feel like I feel like it comes from Kabbalah in terms of like the mind into like the emotions and everything, but it really has all aspects inside of that, like a mind and its emotions.
I don't know about mind and emotions. I think it's more about like chachma and bina. Males have more chachma, women have more bina. And I think it has to do with chachma creates chesed and bina creates gvura. Gvura creates yira. So it's more about hamtakas adinim. Do you understand the language that I'm talking? Yeah. So it's more about in a relationship, whenever you're going to have a giver receiver, it's not so much mind and emotions, it's much more just the dynamic of the relationship. So then, listen, if I'm working for an employer in that relationship, I'm a receiver. I may be a giver at home. I may be a receiver here. We're givers and receivers in many different, to my parents, I'm kind of a receiver. To my children, I'm a giver. So we fluctuate in terms of the dynamic of relationships based on, if you want to call it the position in the relationship, and therefore the sense of, if you want to call it the sense of need, it changes. And so therefore it's in the male-female relationship, that's kind of the general dynamic. And so in such a dynamic, it is kind of the obligation of the giver to give joy to the receiver, to bring joy. And again, like I said, you can't bring someone joy unless you are joyous. So in a certain sense, the job of a man is to be happy, because the happier he is, and most women will say, I think, that they want their husbands to be happy, because a happy husband will be a happier man is a happier husband. So being happy is a very important thing to do. And then you can bring that happiness to other people. So it's a very, Hashem said, Ivdos Hashem b'simcha. He wants us to be happy, and happiness is something we have to strive towards, because the happier I am, the happier I'm going to make other people. L'chaim v'levracha. Okay. Everyone have a beautiful, beautiful day.